Amen.
Highest best test. And if banks go out of business, they go out of business. I mean, we're not making it better by keeping banks in business. We're making it worse because we're having to divert scarce resources into propping up these companies, and we're doing far greater damage to our economy beneath the surface than if we just sucked it up and let the companies fail.
Explain to us what would happen if one of these big banks failed. Pick whichever one you want or use some hypothetical name.
Well, people would lose money. I mean, look, the
Bank of America
creditors would lose money, and if the government doesn't insure all the depositors are going to lose money. But, you know, people are losing money all the time. They make bad decisions, and they lose money. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, the losses are already there. All the government wants to do is try to socialize the losses and make people who aren't even involved in the transactions suffer a loss. In the process, they undermine our free market system. They make the economy less efficient and less productive, and they do far greater damage than just the financial losses.
Isn't the government just delaying the inevitable
Yes.
so that perhaps these banks don't collapse on their watch?
Exactly.
It's not just about delaying the inevitable. They're actually going to make it much, much worse than it needed to be. There would already be reparation going on in this economy if we had allowed these people that took bad risks to fail. But we will not get.
You know, imagine if we would have let the recession run its course in 2001, 2002.
Like, go back to just Lehman's bailout. I thought we were going to make money on that. I thought that goes. Yeah, Peter. I thought we were going to make money on the first Citigroup bailout. Remember that one?
But Judge, I think the judge hit the nail on the head. This is all about we can't have a failure under my watch. This is exactly why Bush ran to his Democratic Congress right before he got out the door and got TARP through.
Right.
This is exactly why Obama's doing this now. He
Wouldn't
doesn't
you be
want
proud?
his first 100 days because that, you know what the problem is?
Shouldn't you be proud of
If a
allowing
bank
these
goes
companies
down,
to go fail?
everything that
to
Bush
allow the
did,
law to rule the
9/11,
land?
all the consecutive months of job growth would go down the toilet. And
Anyway,
agreed,
much
but
worse than it would have
That
otherwise.
was the mindset. That was the mindset.
Be proud of
in DC.
letting people fail.
I agree.
Peter?
Bush should have allowed the recession to be more severe in his first term and ran the risk of not getting reelected. He could have blamed it on the fallout from the bubble under Clinton, but instead Bush played politics. He tried to postpone the problems for the next election, and for Bush it worked, but for the country it was a disaster because the price of reelecting George Bush is the economic disaster and crisis that's unfolding right now.
What do you think Tim Geithner is going to do with the second half of the TARP? He tried to explain it, and as he did, the market went down 400 points, and now we haven't seen him in public in 2 weeks.
Thank goodness.
Peter?
I don't know. They should just give the money back. They should just say, you know what, we're not going to use it. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen. They're just going to find a way to blow it.
Peter, answer this. What is the actual end game here? Walk me forward 2 years from now. Where is Citigroup? Where is Bank of America? Has the government already gone through the quote-unquote nationalization and reprivatization process? Are they just getting there? Are we continuing to bail them out? Go ahead.
The banks are going to lose a lot of money, and if we don't let them fail, the government's just going to keep them in business.
But that's what I'm saying. Instead of telling me what
a huge subsidy,
what
and it's going to just.
What I'm asking is, what is the most likely scenario? Looking at the Republican, Democrat, socialist regime in power, what is the most likely scenario 3 years down the road that our banking system looks like?
Where will the banks be in 3 years?
I think the government is going to ultimately come in there with these bigger banks and try to make everybody whole with their printing press. I mean, I think that's what they're going to do. I mean, otherwise, if they just keep propping them up, then it's even worse. Because then the executives of the banks just operate these companies like they're their own personal slush funds, transferring money from the taxpayer to themselves.
Yeah,
that's
what they're doing right now.
Do you think that a time will come when the government won't be able to get anyone to loan money to it? Or will it simply raise the interest rates and raise the interest rates until it's too good an offer to turn down?
That at some point nobody is going to want to lend the U.S. government any money because everybody's going to know the U.S. government's not going to pay it back. It's just going to run it off a printing press. And when you're in Europe and you're in Asia and you're getting back, inflated currency, it's not the same thing as getting paid back. So at some point, Ponzi scheme is going to end. And unfortunately, all we're going to have is Ben Bernanke and the printing press, and that is the real disaster. And that's what's looming.
Peter,
and I think there's a good chance it's going to happen before the end of the Obama first term.
When the government begins to pay back some of these bonds, the money, the bonds they're selling now, some of them may be 3 and 6 month bonds, so they got to be paid back while Obama's still president. where are they going to get the money to pay it back? Are they going to borrow money to pay back the borrowed money?
Get the money the same way Bernie Madoff got money to pay his investors. They sell new bonds. It's a gigantic Ponzi scheme.
And Peter,
hang on just a second. Our good friend Congressman Ron Paul joins us from the Capitol Rotunda. Congressman, welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Good. Nice to be with you again.
Thank you. Peter Schiff is with us, Cody Willard and Tracy Burns from the Fox Business Network.
Honored to be
and
on
Judge
with you.
Napolitano, one of your biggest admirers on the planet. How rampant is the talk among your colleagues of bank nationalization?
Well, you know, it's on again, off again. A couple of days ago, there was a lot of talk, but I think they've gotten a lot of skittish about it. So they're not talking about it as much today as they were yesterday and the day before because they think it's a negative. But, you know, nevertheless, the government is more involved, and there's all forms of socialism, all forms of ownership. They essentially have control of the banking system anyway, and it's sort of a fascist system of control. So maybe they won't take total ownership, but believe me, they're going to have total control of what's going on.
What are your thoughts, having just watched and participated in the interrogation of Federal Reserve Chairman Bernanke?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that whole thing about Bernanke. Say that again, please.
What are your thoughts and observations, having just observed his interrogation before the House Financial Services Committee?
Yeah, well, it's the same thing over and over again. You know, I asked him how long he would put up with what he's doing. Would he ever admit that we're on the wrong track, pointing out that, you know, in the last year, we've added $1.5 trillion to the national debt. He's been controlling trillions of dollars. It's up to $9 trillion of injecting the credit into the market. And I said, and the markets keep getting worse. And the confidence level is down to 25, the lowest ever. I said, could there ever be a point where you would say to yourself, you'd wake up some morning and say, I'm on the wrong track and my policies are wrong? Guess what? He didn't answer that question. I said, even if in 5 years from now, our economy is no better and we have rampant price inflation, I said, would there ever be a point where you would say, maybe our policies are wrong? Well, no, I don't think we're going to live to see the day that Bernanke's going to say, I made a mistake. Murray Rothbard was right and I was wrong in my analysis of the Depression. I don't think that's going to happen.
The guy that the president has put in charge of monitoring the stimulus, the guy that nobody messes with, Joe Biden, who wasn't even able to give the website this morning on CBS News for how you get access to government information, himself said there's only a 30% chance that this thing would succeed. I mean, how would you buy something worth $1 trillion if there was only a 30% chance that it would do what you were buying it to do?
You'd think that common sense would wake up the people, but it doesn't seem to do it. You know, they are locked in on this idea that it's the government's responsibility to run the economy. That you stimulate the economy by government spending, you borrow money, and the Federal Reserve prints the money. They've been doing it for years and years. It proved it failed. It proved that it gave us our deepest recession, now depression, probably in our history. And what are they doing? Exactly the same thing. So there is no learning from history. I don't think we learn on our foreign policy. I don't think we learn from our domestic policy. We certainly haven't learned very much on monetary policy. But in spite of all that, of the lack of knowledge here in Washington, I see and hear and talk to more and more young people around the country who are waking up and saying, hey, you know, you really got me interested in studying the Fed, and I agree with you, and we have to do something. So it might take a whole new generation to do it, but not the current crowd.
Peter Schiff, do you want to weigh in on this?
Pardon me?
The congressman is absolutely right. I mean, we've learned nothing from history. The politicians can't figure out that the source of our problems is their intervention, and maybe if they can figure it out, they don't care because they like the power. They like the fact that the country is in trouble because they can come to our aid with their phony solutions. But nobody wants to tell the public the truth. No one wants to level with anybody about what houses are really worth or where economic growth really comes from. No one wants to talk about sacrifice or saving money or going back to production. Everybody wants to pretend that there's some magic bullet that the government can fire into the economy and make everything okay. But
Tracy Burns, yes.
Congressman Paul, I watched you with Bernanke this morning, and you laid into him, let's face facts, and rightfully so. I actually thought it was wonderful. And you said to him, would you be open to new ideas? And he sort of tiptoed around it and I think this is our problem now. As you said, there was no response to that.